Yeah, but I mean, don't you feel like we're sleeping anyway throughout the weekend? Like we're already exhausted and tired, and we're like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just gonna go to bed.
Just gonna go to bed. That's what I did last night. Well, that's what I planned on doing last night, and then I was just up all night. Well, till like 12:30. I was gonna go to bed like really freaking early, and then I was up all night long, just kind of like screwing around, just like I couldn't come down. Like I told you, that's my dog and his dog toys, so he'll be done with it soon. But I couldn't come down because I just had like a crazy couple days. And so it was a lot, like when you're so wound up from work and you're just not ready to relax yet, but you want to.
And with that, having good vibes
We're like,
into
fucking
Stone
hard.
World.
I know, and
Um,
that's the reason that we come and we do, American Groove is to get
yes,
away. It's
this is
the escape
the
from the
escape.
shit. Yeah.
Yes, and this is American Groove, a Lost in the Groove segment hosted by Dave
And
Lennon.
Karissa.
Woo! Today we're here for the 100th episode of Lost in the Groove. That's right, everybody. There has been 100 episodes of Lost in the Groove all over the motherfucking internet. So, being that we both are kind of like 90s kids, um, we thought for the 100th episode, we're going to go to our roots. We're going to talk about being kids growing up in two different versions of the 90s. All right. Giggity, giggity. No,
Yeah,
that's not
we
90s.
both have different perspectives of the 90s. We both saw it through different eyes. So I thought that was kind of fun.
And
Um,
our outfits, we are very 90s esque today. I got the little earring. I got the Woodstock with the shirt over, and you got the leopard print going on. Very 90s.
I think the leopard print is 90s.
It's
Like,
so 90s, honey.
I
You're
don't
giving me
know.
like 93.
I wear this pot leaf necklace for every
Ooh.
episode of American Groove. It's like my signature necklace for American Groove now. I am still like trying. I put my microphone on the other side of my face this time
Whoa.
to avoid shadows. Don't I look? Ooh. Hi, Trixie. Hi, sweet baby.
Well, she's here
Yes.
for she's so everybody's here. We got Louie, we got Twix, we got Karissa, and we got me. So everybody's here.
All four people are
All
here. People. All
people,
four
all
people are
people
here.
are here.
Yeah. So I
Um,
wanted to do a 90s episode, and David was like, be more specific, Karissa. And I was like, that's the whole point. And he was like,
yeah, but you do,
what's
girl, you do this to me sometimes. You're just like you text me and like, I'm like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And then you're like, 90s. I'm like, bruh, like I can't read your mind all the way here on the Northeast, okay? Like you gotta give me a little detail over here, like, nah, it's just the 90s. That is the exact feedback that I got up until this point. I mean, no, we've had conversations about this, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But my whole point was for it to be very broad so that like we have the freedom to just talk about any part of the 90s and just
Oh yeah, fuck
go
yeah.
wherever the conversation goes. So if this feels like it's all over the place, that's because it's supposed to be.
That's American Groove. We are a all out stoner culture podcast and comedy hour. I mean, we do comedy here. We have a conversation. We have a little bit of fun. We get into the nitty gritty. Sometimes we might be a part of the trends just a bit.
Oh, we are trendy people.
Oh, we are very trendy people, honey, darling. We are the trendy. Hashtag
I was
90s
like,
fashion.
we're 90s trends. I mean, my one friend said that lip smackers was something that she really, really remembers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny
Yeah.
because my mom says that lip smackers was like like a 60s, 70s thing. And so like I think lip smackers like makes themselves relevant for like each decade or
The
whatever.
one thing that I remember out of the 90s more than anything is overalls. In the UK, they're called dungarees, and I believe in Europe as well. But here in the US, they're called overalls. And as kids that grew up in the 90s, I wore overalls when I was a kid. You probably did too.
Yeah.
It was just a part of being a kid at that time. And it's funny because overalls was a thing that like a person that was building a skyscraper or somebody that did like plumbing and heating or like was a mechanic wore overalls. It
For
just was not
necessity.
necessity exactly. But we turned it into a fashion trend. That's what the 90s and the early 2000s was. We just took practical things, made it impractical, and called it fashion.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
overalls are a really good touch if we're talking
Ah,
about trends from the 90s.
yes.
I remember Oshkosh Bagosh. I had like a shirt or like overalls that
Oh
said
my god.
Oshkosh
Oshkosh
Bagosh.
Bagosh.
And
Yeah.
everybody wanted, something that said the name Oshkosh Bagosh. And as kids, it was really fun to say. Like we would just say it all the
We
time.
had a trend where we put like printed names on things. It was like very popular to do like the embroidered, like the straps with like a name or like a
What, your
cloud.
own name or like
No,
a
like the
club
brand, like
that you're
Oshkosh
in?
Bagosh. They used to make these
Oh.
clothes that like had like for the girls, like the glittery little patches and like the hearts on, like you know what I'm talking about, like the
Well,
over
there's like a slogan of the company that's like,
Yes,
written on the front of
yes.
the shirt or like whatever. I mean, that reminds me of like Abercrombie. They'd always have like the moose, and so that was like a whole thing, but it was like if you had the moose. It also reminds me of like oh, I don't know.
Ralph
The
Lauren, like the
alligator
polo,
one. But
Lacoste. Yeah,
Lacoste,
I love
yeah. If you
Lacoste.
had the alligator on your popped, thing.
I had Lacoste shirts when I was a kid. It was cool. Like you wore
Yeah.
a Lacoste polo. Like it was classy.
I think this is more like in the 2000s that I remember that,
But that's
but
a
I'm
th-
not
that,
really sure.
but let's tie this in, right? We were talking about how like I personally am one of the believers that the 2000s was the 90s. Okay, it, it kind of
You were saying
was.
how it carried over,
Yeah,
and I was saying how like a lot of the 80s was part of the 90s because a lot of it was, still relevant and would carry over. So we were saying that a lot of the 90s carried over to the 2000s. And like even though you and I have an age gap and I was born, right at the very beginning of the 90s and you kind of were more, like younger at the very beginning of it. That's how we have two different perspectives and how like honestly a lot of the stuff that I remember from the 90s you're going to remember too because they were still going on, they were still around. I don't know if time just like didn't move as quickly or something, but like
the one thing that is very similar to our childhoods is the type of media that we were exposed with. Because as a kid, one of the ways that our parents would give us education on television at a young age was PBS. PBS was a very important PBS Kids was a very important part. My parents knew what PBS Kids was. We were taught PBS Kids in school. Um, there was when I was growing up, the internet was new. And because I was raised in a Jewish community, some of the teachers at the time, they wanted to implement the new teachings that were going on.
mhm.
And it's really, if you look back at the 90s, look, there's a lot of things that we've worked on and we've gotten better at. But the way that we implemented education with kids was completely new in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Well, you were talking about media. I yesterday kind of, just like glanced over like my favorite memories from the 90s and obviously I come to Nickelodeon. Now, I started watching this little documentary on Nickelodeon and they talked about how in the early 90s um the US government or some type of officials or something like did this kind of like statistic analysis to see, how much of what was on television is violent. And it was seriously like freaking like 75% of what's on television is violence. So Nickelodeon was created and pushed and like created into this big thing so that there was things on television that kids could watch that didn't contain violence. And I didn't know that. Like, I was like, oh wow. But I mean, it is crazy because it's like you think of all the media companies, they want viewership,
Right.
so like they're gonna play whatever's flashy enough to get people to view and pay attention. So a lot of that in the 90s and late 80s was action films.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
was a lot of action and violence. We had Terminator. I
Die
watched
Hard,
Terminator. I watched all that shit when I
Blade
was like
Runner,
3, 4 years old.
Blade
I
Runner,
saw,
Die Hard.
yeah, yeah, all the Arnold
Sh-
Schwarzenegger movies, all the Stallones, like all that shit.
yeah.
And I grew up on action films, and I think a lot of us did. And then it was like, or you watch Disney Channel, you watch Sesame Street, or you watch Nickelodeon. Now I kind of
Or
don't,
Cartoon Net. Well, remember my
yeah.
generation was Cartoon Network already.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. We didn't have that till I was in like junior high,
that was like
but
that was mid to late 90s, I believe, was Cartoon Network. I miss cartoon. I miss when Cartoon Network was actually good. Oh
yeah,
god.
it had a really, really beautiful golden age.
It
Now,
did.
I didn't have television like cable until I was probably in like 3rd grade. So I never really got to watch like all the things, like we just had the basic like 16 channels or like 23 channels or something like that. And then all of a sudden we got cable because we got like secrets told. We got a black box so we could like hijack the cable from like somewhere else. Like there was just like a cable line that went through the yard underneath the ground, and like you could like figure out how to like get a black box and like stream your own cable into your own house. Now it was kind of sketchy, like
Can
it would
I
like go out every once
shout
in a
out
while.
anyone that is watching this live and would love to comment, which we would really appreciate? Name your favorite 90s channel that you watched. I'm actually
90s
curious to
channels.
figure out because mine was Cartoon Network. Yours is it Disney? No, it's not Disney Channel. Is Nickelodeon? Which one's
I mean,
yours?
I really enjoyed Nickelodeon. There were so many different things on there that I could watch. I had a really good time with Nickelodeon. I know, in NBC was a really big deal. We watched,
Mm-hmm.
Friends, and there was Fox, had like a, like a channel that wasn't just news. We would watch it on Channel 6, and we used to watch X-Files. That shit's scary when you're little.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
There was Goosebumps on television too. Those are good
yeah, yeah, yeah.
times.
Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I mean, Nickelodeon was probably the best, like when it first came out. Um, but I mean, I started watching Cartoon Network, but Simpsons was a really big thing too. And I feel like that was it FX? Not Fox. It
No,
was FX.
no, it was on 21st Century.
21st Century
21st
FX,
Century,
I
yeah,
thought.
which was owned by Fox. The thing about like for me when it comes to The Simpsons is as a kid, you know, Family Guy had came out and South Park was also out as well.
Yeah, I didn't have South Park till I was in 4th grade. I remember
So
when it came out.
my parents' view of The Simpsons, like many parents that knew my parents, was it was an adult version of a cartoon that we could watch if they were around and they were comfortable. My parents were actually more comfortable with me watching like The Simpsons than watching like Family Guy or South Park.
But
Um,
yeah, South Park is really
it
vulgar,
was
dude.
really bad. Like
Yeah,
we weren't even allowed to say like I if I said South Park in my house,
you couldn't
um,
say it.
no, actually, this is a true story. In elementary school, if you said South Park in school, in my school, you were given detention.
It's
You,
just a
I
word. It's
know that, but you were not allowed to talk about adult cartoons in my school. It was very strict. So that's actually a really fun memory. That's not a fun memory, but it's a memory I remember about
it's
South Park.
crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is funny. You're not allowed to say the word South Park.
But getting to your point, I'm sorry. You were saying,
No, you don't have to. That's what we do. We float all over the place.
yeah,
And
like a
it
bunch of
just
buffoons
the
stoned to the
freedom,
bone.
the freedom to free your mind and just fucking say whatever's there.
And suck on your bong so hard until it feels like a goddamn pacifier when you were 5.
Oh, I mean, hey, if
Sure.
it feels good.
Hey. But yeah, I mean, like that's something that like, the conversation kind of turns into is we are we are one of the early generations of the internet. Um, I grew up in a time where the internet was newer
Mm.
and it became more advanced to what it is now. And
Yeah.
our way
Yeah, go
our ways
on.
and the point like I'm trying to get at is our way of being able to consume media, being able to read things, to be able to watch things was very interactive. Because for us, how did we watch a movie when we were a kid? We went to Blockbuster, or in our case, we had Hollywood Videos. You wanted to buy electronics, you went to an electronics store like Radio
You're saying
Shack,
that you
or
had to go out and go find it?
of
Is that
course, like
what you're trying to point out?
yeah, like the idea of being able to buy things online and have things delivered to you instantaneously was very unheard of for most of my childhood and yours. Like we physically had to go to places
Yeah.
and be interactive
I
to,
mean,
yeah,
sometimes it sucks because like you just don't have what you need. Like there were times where like you just wouldn't have what you need, so you just move on to the next thing that could suffice in its place.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you'd go out to the movie store and you'd be like, I'm gonna get the new release tonight. And you get there and they're all taken.
Yeah.
That doesn't ever happen with HBO. They're not ever all taken,
Nope.
So like there was no rush to get there. Like, I don't know. So you would move on to just the next movie, like you'd be like, okay, well, that one's not here. I'll get it next weekend. But tonight I'm still gonna get something. I'll just get that other movie. So I feel like there was place for other things. I don't know. But yeah, you would just like move on. Like if I spent all night looking for green leggings and there aren't any, I just buy the fucking blue ones, and just move on. Like, but online on Amazon, I order exactly what I want. It comes right to me. Like I never have to mess with anything other than exactly what I want.
It's the fact that I, as a 24-year-old person that's in my mid 20s and you being in your mid 30s, we
Early 30s. I
early,
have
sir,
not
early,
hit the
sorry,
mid yet.
early 30s. Sorry, we're both technically early 20s and
I
early
haven't
30s.
hit mid. We'll call it mid when I've
We'll,
gotten
we'll, we'll
there.
call him in when it gets there. But the point is that we're trying to get it is our experiences through life have gotten easier, being able to adapt and be a part of society and be able to make and create things, just like how we're been able
Yo,
to
I
do
don't
this
feel
podcast.
no, I don't feel like my life's gotten any easier.
Well, think about it like it. No, well, it has gotten easier with certain things. Like for example,
No,
like
I don't think that technology makes things easier. And
you
like
don't
maybe I'm
you
just
don't
like
think you don't think that
no,
you don't think it's amazing that
no,
we're able to literally sit down here, have a conversation, have this live. People are able to hear us talking,
no.
and
I think that that's incredible. But what I think is that, like unfortunately, like maybe we wouldn't have this, but I do think that technology has isolated people. I think
for sure,
technology
I'm not
is the
denying that.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think technology is the reason that I don't have anything else going on today. Like I really do. Like I think people don't get together as much, like whatever. And you can do that. You can get together with people. But like it's hard to like build that momentum out of nothing. So I just feel like it isolates people, and I feel like I would be doing something else today, like more actually physically interacting with people, being around people. But because I have the internet, I'm now doing this, and I'm not knocking it. I love this. I need to work with what I have. And so what I have is the new world with the technology. So I'm going to make a podcast. Does that make any sense? Like
it does
your
make sense.
interests change,
You're
but I
interested.
wouldn't say that my life is better. I don't
It's
know.
not so it's I guess it's a way of how you want to view it. Maybe the word better is not the right word to use, but the way
Sorry,
that
I'm
I
being a bitch.
no, you're doing fine, and this is great. This is a great way of having an open conversation about this and really breaking this down to what it is. And it is that being able to freely be outspoken, be able to say your opinions Say what's on your mind. Um,
I
you
do
know,
think it gives people a beautiful platform to speak up. Like
yes, it
I feel
does.
you on that. Yeah.
I think also something for us is that the type of environments that we were raised in, the experiences that we had growing up, have also allowed us, people like us, people with the relation and the understanding of being open towards others. I feel it's a strength to have as a generation, because when you use it towards, especially now, because you're right, things are harder, they are more difficult, they are more isolated, but it's what we're going to do with those things. It's, for example, of what are we going to do.
Yeah, this is what I have now. I'm gonna work with it kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I understand it. Hmm. I'm trying to roll this joint right now.
You're doing great, honey.
I wish that I could get my camera to come down lower so that you could like actually see me, but I don't
I
know.
well, I'm not being fancy. I just have a pipe currently that I've been smoking.
I need to
Um
go buy one, but I don't have anything like that.
well,
So I
I just went to my local smoke shop and I paid like $35. Oh, which reminds me, we are a weed podcast. So weed for today.
oh, is that so?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Weed.
yeah. We're a weed podcast. What do you have to say about it?
So today is Orlando Kush. This comes straight from Sunburn, which is a dispensary out here in South Florida. They have a location in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. Um, and Orlando Kush is a indica dominant. It's perfect for lows, helps you relax, and is great for a good mood and a good nap. So that is the weed for today, because I am very, very, very tense, which Carissa knows.
Oh,
I've had a little bit of a hard weekend. Um, but
uh,
I'm happy to be here, doing this 90s edition with you, because like I feel like one of the big crucial parts of our relationship is our childhoods. I mean, the world that we grew up around with. And like, I actually am kind of thankful that I was born in 1999. I feel like I'm kind of proud of the age group that I'm a part of, because of all the things that I was able to learn throughout my life up until this point. And I feel like you feel the same way too. It's like there's
yeah.
something about the sorry, I'm still tired.
I was thinking about how it's different doing the podcast on a Saturday morning.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
it is. It's like it gives it like a more like I have to be like more energetic, like kind of thing. But like I mean, that's fun. I have more energy on a Saturday morning, but at the same time, I'm like, not every Saturday morning's exciting.
Do
Sometimes
you remember
they're
what
lazy.
do you remember the kind of TV shows that were on Saturday mornings? It was always like very
Saturday
energetic. Very
Saturday morning
energetic.
cartoons.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, we watch Saturday morning cartoons a
Animaniacs.
lot.
Remember Animaniacs?
Animaniacs,
Yeah.
man. Mom and dad watched Animaniacs like crazy. They were so much fun.
It was
And
so
like
much fun.
yeah, they were really, really entertaining. I really like that. Now that's WB. That's a lot of WB
Warner
stuff.
Brothers, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Warner Brothers.
Santa Barbara.
Yeah, now I believe Warner Brothers, if I could be wrong, but I think they got like a big setup in Canada right now, and they film a whole bunch of stuff up in there. And they mostly focus on like TV shows and stuff like that, but I don't hear Warner Brothers as much as I used to. Like growing up, Warner Brothers was the shit.
Well,
Like we were like
they still are. I mean, Warner Brothers and Sony are one of the largest media enterprises besides Disney. Actually, Disney's one of the largest. The thing is, like,
yeah, they bought so much shit.
something like we've talked about this before, when kind of the thing about the 90s and the 2000s, and this is important to people that are into the media and culture, a lot of companies were going bankrupt. A lot of companies were going bankrupt. Disney was on the brink of extinction. Apple was on the brink of extinction. There was a lot of companies that were
When's
losing
that?
in the early 90s. So kind of like
Early
the
90s.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. My mom and dad talk about like this like depression that they were like going through like in their own way. I'm like, what the hell? I never heard about
so
this, but
yeah.
that's what you're referring to.
So what happened was there was this boom of where technology started to advance, the internet had started getting a lot better, and they had to figure out different ways of adapting to the times, and a lot of new technology started coming out of it. And it's really okay. So anyone that's listening to this, and Chris, just think about this for a second. The internet has been around publicly for everyone to use since 1992. Okay, that is about 30 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't use the internet back then.
Okay, we're right. Now,
You know
think
what
about
was weird is there's like no use for it.
there
Like it
was
was like, well, I didn't have any use for the internet. You know, like I had no reason to use it because like when did Google come out?
98.
Yeah, so like there's no reason to get on a computer before the shit was designed. You know, like if I don't have AOL and I don't have Amazon and I don't have things to shop on and everybody doesn't already have a website where I can order things from,
Yeah,
there's no freaking reason to even be on there. You know, I don't have people to talk to, no one else is on there. Like, you know, it was like the internet's like a useful invention, but what's very useful is everything that's on it.
it was a struggle to adapt to because the thing is, it was so expensive. Um, it was very expensive. The play, a lot of we didn't really. This is crazy. Where I grew up, we didn't really have like dial-up didn't fade out until like 2007, 2008 in my area until they actually started putting in internet poles where people can get actual service. Um, it's kind of strange because most people today, like by the time they reach my age or your age in the next like 20 or 30 years, they don't have to give a fuck about any of this. They don't have
I
to
imagine they
care.
have like their own perspective of it.
Probably, yeah, probably.
Like there's like this new thing that gets invented and they think, you know, like, oh, life before it. I'll say it again. I'm extremely grateful for growing up or having most of my adolescence before the internet. But what took place or what was in its place was the television, you know, and it's like everybody still like watches Netflix and like whatever else, but in a world where there wasn't as much internet, everything came from that television. Like it was like the television was like your outlet for life. It was like, you know, everything came through it. And it's just like I learned so much from television. I mean, if we're gonna do a 90s episode, I can't bring up the 90s without, you know, Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Um, I mean, he entertained me constantly,
If
and
we want to talk about entertainers from the 90s, I mean Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Johnny
Robin
Depp.
Williams, yeah.
Johnny Depp, come on. I mean,
I mean,
Christopher
I'll kick
Lloyd,
myself for not, you know, saying all
Morgan
of them.
Freeman. There's a
It
lot
just
of
goes
them.
on and on and on.
It
There's a
just
lot of
goes on and on.
amazing comedians.
Amazing. Yeah.
I don't know. I love a lot of 90s movies, like usual. Didn't you say that there's some podcasts that like that's what they do is they review 90s movies?
Yeah. So there was one podcast I came across. They actually review chronologically movies throughout the years by genre.
What, in order of the
Yeah.
years? Oh,
Yeah.
damn. They're very structured.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
love
reviewing 90s movies.
I this is like one goal of Lost in the Groove. I would love to get a music, not a music, a movie review podcast.
Well, I want to do it.
Yeah, we definitely should. We definitely should be. And little surprise bonus. American Groove is going to have actually our first guest ever next week. We're
We're
gonna
gonna
have
have a
a
guest. Who's
yeah.
coming?
It's coming from Hawaii. So get your
Ooh, I like
pineapple.
that.
Yeah, get your pineapple pizzas ready, honey, because we're gonna have a luau. It's gonna be
Is that
fun.
not making assumptions? Or do they really like pineapple pizza? Not every
I
Hawaiian
can't.
likes pineapple pizza.
No, I don't like pineapple pizza, but it was the first thing that popped in my head. So if you want to call that cultural appropriation, go right, honey. But that is literally the first thing that came into my head. But
I'm just teasing you. I think it's
yeah,
cute.
yeah. And we can
I
make
rolled
Stitch
like the
references.
fattest. It's
Ooh, look at
crazy.
that. Ooh, that
Yeah.
looks good. Good for
I know.
you.
I'm gonna like pass out again. Like last episode, I was like, "What's that?"
Last episode, I mean, I was sick with I'm not gonna say it was just viral infection, and I'm still recovering. Like me and Chris have been talking about this. Like I unfortunately have to use an inhaler because I have a hard time breathing, even though I'm smoking, and I know this is not helping me in any shape or
it
form.
it helps in a way.
It helps in
It
a way.
helps in a way.
Yeah,
Didn't you
help.
say marijuana helps with cancer? I'm like, it's gotta
Yeah.
help with
Oh
everything
my
if it
god.
helps with cancer.
Yeah, we definitely we got these are things that we got to talk about, like the cancer research with cannabis. I'd love to bring also somebody on and have like a real conversation about this.
Yeah,
Um,
it'd be cool to bring on some like cannabis specialists, talk to some people about like specific things, you know?
yeah, be able to get into it more because the thing like like I'm not the thing about us is that even though we our whole thing is stoner culture because we are stoners and it's a it's kind of a part of our life. Um, there are other avenues within it. The research that's been done and different articles that have been posted about different things that it can help with. It's just amazing. It's just incredible the amount of research and time that people have put in to learn more about this. Um, I don't know. I think it would be just really incredible to have that conversation with that person.
Yeah. Well, it's an extremely huge rapidly growing industry.
Oh, of
It's
course. Yeah.
fucking crazy. I don't even touch on what is going on out there when it comes to cannabis. I mean, some people, they have a lot going on, you know, they own cannabis empires. You know, they're making like an entire fortune, a whole brand, you know. I mean, everybody's got brands going, but I'm saying like, you know, enterprise hitting all kinds of different avenues.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's important to be able to view your perspective and your creative character and see what you can make of it. The thing about cannabis is because it's a compound and it's a plant and it has a lot of different properties. There's a lot of things that you can learn when it comes to alternative healing. One of the important parts of Lost in the Groove that I did early that we did with Mike Corlin when he was on the show is break this down because I'm not coming here as a scientist and saying that weed is the next messiah, that this is the next conquest of human civilization to a utopia. No, there are plenty of problems when it comes to cannabis. There are problems with people that are schizophrenic, that have mental disorders that can make things worse. There's problems with cannabis that can affect certain parts of people's brains or body functions.
That's not for everybody,
It's not
you
for
know, to
everybody.
each their
No,
own.
exactly.
When I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast, they touched on that, you know, like how like people had just like extreme fucking breakdowns because
Hmm.
of marijuana. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, okay, I believe you. Like I'm not gonna give you shit, you know, but I will say I have never I'm 34 years old. I've never witnessed anybody have a breakdown because of marijuana. I've witnessed people have a breakdown while they were on marijuana. I
Hmm.
don't know. Like, I'm sorry. That's just I'm saying yes, it could be possible, and I'm not gonna like knock anybody's personal experiences, but like, do we know that it was the marijuana's fault, or was that person gonna have a breakdown either way, and the marijuana
I
brought it
I
to the
don't
surface?
think I
Like,
I don't think it's about the person having the breakdown or not.
I don't
I
know.
think it's
It's
about
ridiculous.
I think it's about the glorification and the lack of looking at pros and cons. Because the thing is, when we are having this conversation right now, okay, where we're talking about things that have happened in the past, like our childhood, growing up in the 90's and the 2000s, our experiences of those times had their pros. They had their happy moments, those fun times we had with our families, the things that we didn't have, but it also had its cons. It had its flaws and problems with our safety, our protection, our rights. There were a lot of issues that went on when we were growing up.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I didn't have any choice, as a kid. All the things are decided for you. What you're exposed to, what people show you, what was popular, what was on the TV. I'm freaking, 0 to 10 years old throughout the 90s, and like I didn't have any choice. Now I'm an adult. I choose what I watch, all these different things, and if I had kids, it's my choice to, decide what they're exposed to, whatnot. Different things are going to be popular. You figure out how you want to deal with it. And so, I mean, those are my first personal thoughts when I think about what you're saying, is like, I didn't have any choice back then. And just whatever was on the TV and whatever was popular was what I was going to see. Because like, I mean, I'm grateful for my parents and the way that they raised me, but I'm grateful for that they didn't monitor what I did. Like, we got to watch whatever we wanted. Like, I mean, they didn't like show me like terrible stuff, but like, I mean, like, they didn't over monitor me and make sure that like I wasn't exposed to things. Like, I just grew up in the fucking times. Like, I saw all of it as it was happening. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, I feel like it could kind of have an effect on me, but like I like the way I turned out. Like, I like how much of our American culture in the 90s like I absorbed and know about. I was very aware. I knew what was going on in the world. As compared to now, I don't listen to the news at all, ever. I
Most people
sometimes
don't.
see it.
Most people don't anymore either. So you're not alone.
Yeah. The news back then was different. It was like just part of things, but it wasn't like this overarching like the world's gonna fall apart kind of thing. I wanted to touch on Bill Clinton and
Oh my god.
the first Bush, and say that I remember when other people were president. Bill Clinton time, that time in the 90s, I feel like everybody kind of lived in this like whoopee illusion, like everybody like got out of college, got the job that they went for. If you didn't go to college, you could still get a good job. The economy was all right. People could afford
Yeah.
houses.
So this
There's
is
this time in the 90s where like you could just, everything worked. It was really
because
freaking weird.
this is
And it
important.
carried on into like about like 2002, and then it was like
It was
boosh.
gone.
Like,
I
yeah.
heard this firsthand. Somebody I knew out in LA, he was telling me like, he grew up in the 90s, like he was a teenager in the 90s. And he said that man, he says, I got out of high school. He says, I worked minimum wage. He's like, I worked in Big Lots, like some kind of shit. And he's like, bruh, my first car, it was $700. It was a 1967 like Dodge something. And I was like, he's like, gas was shit, bro. Like, it cost me $13 a week to fill up. And I was like, so how much was your apartment? He's like, it was $75. I'm like, where did you? And he was like, well, I lived in New York City. And I'm like, what? What did you just say? And it's true that like that was kind of cool and really good, well timed.
Well, I guess New York City was really different too.
Yeah, it was a different time. It was a
I
different
don't
time.
know. See, I've never even been to New York at all, let alone back then.
We're gonna do a New
But
York
everything
special
we
with Karissa one
watched,
day. Yeah.
everything we watched was like New York. Like Friends was in New York, and Sesame Street had like a New
Seinfeld.
York feeling. There was a lot of like Chicago references at the time, like, and the Chicago Bulls were a big deal in the very early 90s. You had all that Michael Jordan stuff. Fucking every single person liked Michael Jordan. Like, everybody. They all liked Michael Jordan. I mean, it was just like, Michael Jordan. And everybody loved to watch him play.
I mean, there was a
Like,
time that
even I would be like, whoa.
there was a time that OJ Simpson was on the other side. That was a
O.J.
reality
Simpson.
until '94. Huh?
OJ Simpson. I love that OJ Simpson came up organically in conversation.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I try always.
I don't even plan that one.
We got to throw in some tea, honey. Gotta get it a
I
little
know.
dirty.
I was gonna say there's no way to like touch on like all the things that you would want to touch on a 90s special, and there were things that I deliberately don't want to touch on, like things that were like really heavy. Like I was like, we're not
Yeah.
gonna talk about that.
Some people in royal families that, you know. I watched the first episode of The Crown, okay? And that's it. I
Okay,
should have.
so was it the first episode? My friend was like, I'm watching The Crown so that I can watch. And I was like, So I
They chose,
remember
you're gonna
when
love
that
this.
happened.
You're gonna love this. They chose the lady that plays the pink pom pom from Harry Potter, that crazy Professor Umbridge, that psycho lady from Harry Potter. She, the actress that played her, that character, plays the Queen. It's weird.
Yeah, she's the same one. I believe she's the same one that was in The Favorite. Do you know her name?
I don't.
I've seen her. She's a really good actress. She won like the Academy Award for acting or best supporting actress like a couple years ago. I can't believe we're going to talk about her. We don't know her name, but
no, we're well, let's go ahead and search this up. Give me one sec.
But
I got Google right here.
When Princess Diana passed away, was murdered, she
do you want to talk about this?
I was at my friend's house.
All right, we're talking about it.
Okay. Now, here, this is another thing that I definitely wanted to say, is that Spice Girls were the biggest shit in the world. Everybody loved the Spice Girls.
I love how we went from the Crown and the royal family
to this is Britain.
Okay. All right. I'm going with you, honey. Yeah.
It's UK stuff. Okay. So like Spice Girls were huge, and everybody was still pretty obsessed with the United Kingdom, like and Britain and stuff. And think about it, like in the 60s and the 70s, they were all like, that's what the United
Imelda
States
Staunton. I think her name Imelda Staunton.
Imelda?
I think it's pronounced Imelda. Okay, let me share the screen, and I believe I can do this. I'm sorry for anyone that is on Instagram, but I do not know how to share on there. So you're just gonna have to believe us that we're not lying to you. We're definitely not lying. No, we're definitely not lying. Are we lying? No, we're not lying.
I'm just saying that a lot of trends would come from the UK. And so people were crazy about the Spice Girls, and people loved Princess Diana. And I feel like I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old, and I was at my friend's mom's house, and it was on the television that Princess Diana had died. I almost feel like there was a moment where they said she was in a car accident, but they had not announced that her heart had stopped beating. Was what, like they just didn't. Oh, this is a totally different woman than the woman that I was talking about.
Which one you were talking? Oh, you said The Favorite.
Yeah, The Favorite. I thought that she played the Queen. But that might have been like a different season.
Oh, okay. Olivia Colman.
Olivia Colman.
Olivia Colman.
Didn't she play a queen?
Well,
yeah,
she played
was
in
on
season.
The Crown.
Right, but she was on the previous season, honey. They changed the queen every season or something like that.
I don't know why.
Well, because they're going through the different decades of the queen's privacy in the royal Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, but like, why would the queen be older?
Well, because in each season she ages by 10 years.
What are they doing? Flashbacks of when Diana
passed
away?
Well, they did like the coronation. So like the first season,
so this the queen would be younger.
This is so off topic, but I love where this is going.
The queen would be younger. I'm so confused.
No, well, the first season had Claire Foy. She played when the queen was coronated in the 50s and then throughout the 60s. And then they brought on Olivia Colman, play the queen in the 70s, I think late 60s and 70s. They had different actresses play the queen as she aged throughout the decades.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that like this actress that they hired looks like she's even older than Olivia Colman, which doesn't make sense because the queen wasn't that old yet when Princess Diana passed.
I don't think they're that old. I don't think necessarily I don't know what their practice of which actors and actresses they're picking to play. the cast, but I would assume that they're doing this for.
They don't care. I don't know. I never think that their actresses actually look like Princess Diana. I watched the Kristen
They
Stewart
can.
movie.
The thing is,
You,
we have the technology to deep fake at this point.
I
So
hate that shit.
I know that that's the point. Like people don't like it, so it's
People
where
don't
they.
like it.
I mean, it would be really cool to actually see a like a more realistic portrayal of Diana, but maybe that would be more harder to watch. It might have been harder to watch.
That is terrible though when you think about it. Like, oh. I mean, yeah, it was really, really hard to watch. In Star Wars, they brought back Princess Leia, blanking out her name. And it was like really
Carrie
hard to
Fisher.
watch. Yeah, it was really hard to watch Carrie Fisher. Like, and it was like it just like it made me want to cry. So I mean, I guess if you want to cry and like see people that you remember, could be really good. I don't know.
Wow,
The
that
one
is.
time,
This is so happy. I love this conversation.
if we're gonna talk about, doing that, there was this one time that they had Tupac show up at Coachella, I believe. You know, and they
Okay,
did
we're
like
gonna
a
fact. We're no,
hologram.
we're gonna fact check this because I don't know. Tupac and Coachella is.
I believe it was a hologram of Tupac. Maybe it was somebody else, but I mean that's very 90s to me. But then it was like later on that
I don't know. They did it a couple of years ago. They did like a Michael Jackson concert, but it was not. It was just a hologram. It's crazy.
I wonder if he had anything to do with that, or if that's all just,
I,
made up after he
they
died.
started doing like I heard they also did a John Lennon concert.
Oh, he wouldn't like that, I don't think.
I don't think that either,
He'd be
but
like,
like
fuck
just
you guys. Let me
I
be
hope
dead.
I hope somebody took the tape and brought it to David Chapman's room and was like, "Hey, buddy, you didn't really kill him." He's like, "Ah." That went dark real quick, but we're
Is that guy
we
still alive in a jail cell somewhere?
unfortunately, I don't know why nobody hasn't
Are you
stabbed him
for
yet.
real?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy to me that he's like alive in a jail cell somewhere. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it did go dark.
Yeah, this went real dark. We need to like turn this bus around. So we're gonna go beep,
Yeah, we
beep,
were like,
beep, beep,
we're like,
beep.
we're not
Like
gonna go
turn.
dark. We're not gonna go dark this episode.
No, no, no. We're gonna turn the bus around. The bus is turning. It's turning in the other direction.
When I think
On.
of the 90s, like, yeah, there were a lot of like wild colors and like fun shit and stuff, but honestly, what comes to mind is like a tan beige, like just like a very like bland, like I honestly feel like a lot of people wore like really, really bland colors, like earthy colors. Everything was kind of like normcore to me. At least that's how I feel about it. And I feel like the 90s did have a lot of darkness, and that it was like really covered up with this normcore blandness. I feel like maybe people weren't as expressive or something, or people were tired, or people were like more comfy, so they were complacent. I am not sure what was going on in the 90s, but it had this like kind of like subdued feeling. I don't know what it is. It's like a beige, a tan,
It's a beige.
a brown. I don't know. I wanted to do a shout out to one of my favorite 90s movies though, which is Empire Records.
Mm.
Um I had been thinking about it a lot this past couple weeks, and I just really, really love it. I forgot how great it is, and I wish that someone would make a movie that good again.
Well, shout out to two movies that changed my childhood. One that came out when I was a kid, and the other one that came out in the 90s when I was not alive yet. That would be Mrs. Doubtfire and
Oh.
Monsters Incorporated. That was my movie as a kid, was Monsters Inc. I
Oh,
think with
when did Monsters Inc. come out?
2001 or 2002.
Okay, so that's not 90s.
No, but I that's what I said. I said one movie that actually came out in the 90s and one that came out when I was a kid. That's why I said two.
Yeah.
you did one because you had one when you were growing up in the 90s. But for me, because I grew up in the 2000s, I had to choose like two because, I gave a very complicated answer. I could have given this very short, but yeah.
I watched Monsters Inc. coming down from acid one time, and it was like a brand new experience.
Whoa.
And I was like, holy fuck. I was like, this movie is great.
Yeah, it is. It is a really great. It is a really great movie. I think we could wrap it up. But then we should just take our surfboards.
That was the 90s episode. Okay, so what's next? What's on the plate for next week?
So let's first off say congratulations. Okay, we have did our 100th episode of Lost in the Groove. Thank you so much for everyone that has been here up until this point. Okay, this is 2 years in the making. 2 years.
Congratulations on your 90th episode, David.
Well, 100th, not 90th.
100th. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I suck. I'm like,
no, you're amazing. We're stoned, honey. We don't know numbers. We're not supposed to know numbers.
Congratulations on your 100th episode.
Yes. David. And to clarify, it is the 100th episode, and the episode title is 90s edition. Be sure to check out the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lost in the Groove Pod. Also check out Karissa. She is a makeup artist and a fully licensed esthetician and creator and maker and pug lover. At Karissa the Beautiful on Instagram. So thank you so much, everybody, being here. Karissa, do you want to share a little bit about what's going on next week, and then we'll let everybody go?
Oh my God, you know more about what's going on next week. We have our guest from Hawaii.
Yes. Yes. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk back and forth with Karissa. When we get any updates, that's when the episode will be going out. We will let you know. So thank you, everybody, for being here. We love you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.